Okay, let's talk about some properties of covalent compounds. Now remember, the properties that we're going to discuss today, they're general properties. They do not apply to every single covalent compound out there. But if you have a covalent compound, you're more than likely going to see these properties that we're about to discuss. Now, the first things first, covalent compounds and covalent bonds are different from ionic compounds in the fact that covalent compounds are made up of non-metals only. Only non-metals are involved in covalent bonding. So if we take a look at a covalent compound that we're very well aware of, sugar. Sugar is a covalent compound. We can see here we have carbon. Carbon is a non-metal. We have hydrogen. Hydrogen is a non-metal. And oxygen. Oxygen is a non-metal. So covalent compounds and covalent bonds are made up of non-metals only. Now, when we compare covalent compounds to ionic compounds, we'll see a couple of things. First and foremost, hopefully we would know that we can melt sugar. We've probably seen it before. If you're trying to make caramel, you're melting sugar actually. You might have tried to do this and then ended up burning it. That's because melting points of covalent compounds and boiling points of covalent compounds is very low in comparison with ionic compounds. So covalent compounds tend to have low melting and boiling points in comparison to ionic compounds. We also have probably seen, you've probably done this when you're trying to make lemonade or Kool-Aid. So you get your jug, put some Kool-Aid in there, and then you put your sugar in there. And you have to stir it and stir it and stir it and stir it and stir it for a really long time before you finally feel like your sugar is fully dissolved in your Kool-Aid or your water or your lemonade mix. The fact is, most covalent bonds do not dissolve very well. We know that ionic compounds dissolve very well. Just think about salt and water. But covalent compounds do not tend to dissolve very well. That's why if you leave your lemonade or your Kool-Aid sitting out for too long, you need to take your spoon and stir it back up to re-dissolve that sugar in your Kool-Aid or your lemonade. So covalent compounds do not dissolve very well. One final thing we're going to talk about is whether or not covalent compounds and covalent bonds tend to be softer or harder than ionic compounds. We talked about salt, and if we compare salt and sugar, they both tend to be relatively the same hardness. And that's why these are general properties, because if we just looked at sugar, this is not really going to make a lot of sense to us. But in general, covalent compounds tend to be softer than ionic compounds, just in general. Okay, so again, this is not something that really works with the sugar example that we're talking about, but it does tend to work with other covalent compounds. So these are some general properties of covalent compounds and covalent bonds, and let me know if you have any questions.